Okay, brow mapping, here we go. So this first part you're going to do with your client sitting up, because we are going to be finding our height lines to make sure the brows are sitting at the same height. If your client is laying down when you do this, their muscles are going to be in a completely different position, so that when they do sit up, your heights won't be even. And let's face it, who really looks at their brows laying down? They're going to want them even when they are sitting up or standing up. So the first thing you're going to do is find your centre line. So through the centre of the nose, the bridge of the nose, do a straight line up. This is called our centre line. Then with a piece of thread that's been marked up with a pencil or pigment or pre-inked thread, whatever you want to use, you're going to do a straight line across the bottom of the bulb. This is to make sure both of our brows are starting at the same height. If you put your finger under your brow bone, you can feel where it dips in. You want your brows starting just above there. So if you put your finger there, you could literally draw a line across the top of your finger. Second height line we're going to do is the top of our bulb. So you're going to do another straight line that's going to be going across the tops of your bulb. This is going to determine the thickness of your brows. Then the third line that you're going to do is going to be across the top of your arch. This is then going to decide whether you are doing a high arch or a low arch. So when you're doing this, again, look at the face shape and look at the natural brow. Where is their brow going to? You're going to find most people tend to have one brow slightly higher than the other. So depending on the treatment that you're doing, you may now be able to correct this and put your arches in at the exact same height. Next thing you're going to do I usually use my calipers or my pencil for this, but anything again that's straight, orange wood stick. If you're using something that's thicker like an orange wood stick, just make sure you're always marking on the same side of it, because that kind of 2 mil difference is going to actually change the brow quite a lot. So you're going to hold your tool on the crease of the nostril. Don't go to the outside of the nose, because some people have wider noses than others. So always start on the crease. You're going to use that line and go straight over the inner corner of the eye, and that's going to mark out where your brow should begin. Also, you need to now remember, are they wide set or close set? Are they kind of like an oblong face, square face, heart face? Do you need to push these closer together? Are they close set where you need to push them further apart? So bear this in mind when you are doing these start points. The inner corner of the eye is a guide only. We need to take other factors into consideration. So we've now got our height. We've got 3 height lines: bottom of the bulb, top of the bulb, top of the arch. We've got our centre line in there, and we've got the start of our brows, so the front of your bulbs. So you're now going to find the end of the brow, so where your tail is going to finish. You can hold your tool from the outer corner of the nose on this bit. It won't make much difference. You're just going to follow a straight line from the nose through the outer corner of the eye. And this should tell you roughly where your brow needs to stop. An average brow is between 5 and 6 centimetres in length from the start of your bulb to the end of the tail, just to give you a guide if you wanted to check with your calipers. If you now want to check as well that the start of your bulbs are even to your centre line, you can measure each side to make sure they're even. The average brows sit around 3 centimetres apart, so you would check 1.5 centimetres from either side of your centre line. But again, just remember this may change. You may have a 2 centimetre gap on wider set eyes or a bigger gap on close set eyes. You're then going to find where your arch should be sitting. On average, most people's arch sits around 4.5 centimetres from your centre line. So remember, not from the start of the bulb, but from the centre line. This is going to work on probably about 85% of clients. However, you will get that odd client where actually it's not right, it's not in the right position. If you feel your skull, roughly where your brow arch is, you'll feel like a corner on the bone. Your arch should be just before those corners, because your brow is there to follow the brow bone, and that's where it curves round. So where that bone curves round is where your tail should be sitting. So when I come on to demoing on models for you, I'm going to show you a really easy way of picking up that bone with your pencil and getting your arch exactly where it needs to be for their bone structure. So you can put your 4.5 centimetre guides in if you want to, so you know roughly where you should be. Then when our client lays down, we are going to double check this with the pencil according to the shape of their face. Okay, so we've now got the front of the bulbs, end of the tails and the arch, so we know where we're going to start, stop and arch. And we've got our height lines in, so we know where the bottom of the bulb, top of the bulb and top of the arch should be sitting. So using your thread that's been marked up again that you use for your height lines, you're now going to basically join these points together to map out your brows. Now you've got all of your points mapped in, if you wanted to, you could lay your client down to finish the rest of it off. I tend to find it a little bit easier. So you've got point A, which is the bottom of the bulb, point B is the top of your bulb, and point C is the top of your arch. So all you need to do with that piece of thread is draw one straight line that crosses through all three of these points. And as you can see, you've now just drawn in with your thread the top of your brow. So you can do that for both sides. So you cross through point A, point B, point C. And what you'll see in that middle square where your centre line is you end up actually creating 4 triangles. And what you want to be looking at is, are your triangles on each side and then top and bottom even? Because this is going to help to ensure that your angles are correct. Then we're going to join up point C and point D, and we're going to do this by starting on the centre line and making sure our thread then crosses through point C and D. You do the same on the other side, and you're going to start your thread in the exact same point that the other side started at. So you start on the centre line and again straight through point C, straight through point D. By meeting those points at the top of the centre line is going to help you to ensure that your tails are both coming down at the same angle. The last points that we're going to put in are point E, which is your lower arch. Your lower arch always wants to kind of start curving where your top arch is, so it should always be placed underneath point C. If you want to check your thickness here and make sure that your lower arches are in the same place, you can just hold a piece of thread across, meeting these 2 points in one straight line, and you could put a little dot each side there if you want, so when you're drawing in the underside of the brow, you know where your lower arch should be coming in at. Okay, so we've got all of our points mapped in. We've got the top of our brow now drawn in with our thread. So it's all we need to do is add the under part of the brow in. So I'm just going to get rid of all of these lines on the drawing to make it a little bit clearer for you. This is what you've got drawn in on your client. You can use the thread again to map this part in, but I prefer to freehand it in. Sometimes I find the thread dips and then I end up having to change it anyway. So is all you're going to do is from point A to point E is follow your top line up, and as we know, the arch should always be thinner than the bulb. So as I start approaching point E, I make sure I start lifting the angle on this bottom line. Then you're just going to join point E to point D. We always need to finish in a nice sharp point on the end of the towel. So you can freehand those in. You can thread them as a bit of a guide to start with if you wanted. I just always find I get a better result. You've got your top half of the brow drawn in already with your thread, so you are literally just mirroring that on the bottom line. Just remember your 4 straight lines.